All right, here it is. We're here again, and Dennis Blue, you are here with me. What's happening?
Actually, I'm not there with you. I'm here.
Well, as long as they're listening, they can't tell.
Can't tell. They can't tell, or they won't
They
tell.
cannot tell. We had a couple of good interviews. Well, we had one long interview with Eddie that we split into two. Eddie Velez from White Chicks and A-Team and 8,000 other movies that he talked about. That was quite fun last time. And today we have a longtime friend and guest. No, our guest is a longtime friend and associate of the Wednesday Night Group and founder of the Primal Podcast, Tom McGrath. Do you know this man?
Didn't he used to be on the little corner signs?
That's him. Yes. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, guys. It's great to see you both.
Yes.
Yeah, familiar faces. We don't see enough of each other these days, but yeah, it's great to see you.
We do not. Now, if we appear to be a little slow, maybe we're all tired. I don't know. Are you tired? At least it's
Yeah,
morning.
8 a.m. here, so
8 a.m.
early start for me. For a Sunday, it's early.
Yeah, me too. It's 12. Yeah, it's 12:15 a.m. here. So
Yeah,
it's a little early.
Could we have lined up a better time? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. This is when we've been doing it.
Yeah.
But man, it's been great to see. It's great. Well, it's good to see you. And just to hear your voice, your sultry sound. Okay. I wanted to ask you a little bit about just for those that have not actually heard the Primal podcast, which is more likely they've heard than they've heard ours. Give us a quick background of that, because that's where a lot of people know you from.
So I actually I wasn't the founder of that one. I converted it to being a podcast. But
Okay.
So Jim McCann, who's a member of the Wednesday Night Group, he reached out to me one day and said, "I'm looking to get Primal Radio going again. Would you think about being the co-host?" And every gut instinct in me was like, "No way, I'll be terrible. I hate the sound of my voice." And but I think over life and getting a bit older, I was like, "Yeah, you just got to do it. Like, just say yes and see how it goes." And at the time, he would record that in association with like Hamilton Radio. So he'd use their studios, and it was put out on the radio. But it was kind of an internet-based radio show, and it was actually the third iteration. He'd ran it a few times, and I think it was a passion for him. He was a natural on the radio, sort of thing. He's very charismatic, etc. And every time he had to go at doing it, it would sort of like fade away at some stage. And you could listen to the shows, they were recorded, and you could listen to them on demand. And I said to the guy one day, I said, like, "How many people are listening to this show? Like, how do you know?" And he said, like, 1 million.
Wow.
I said, "There's no way there's 1 million people listening to this." And he was convinced there was. I was like, there's what evidence do you possibly have for that? So I said to Jim, "Look, we should just take that file and stick it out on as a podcast." And actually, like, it's so easy to create a podcast, as you know now, and it sort of gets pushed out via a channel manager to all the different venues. So we started doing that, and it just became increasingly clear that we should be just running that ourselves and have it as a podcast. And you get these amazing metrics, and we never had, like, a good show for us was like about 1,000 people listening to it, which if you think of like it's the size of a high school, is quite good. In proportion to the whole world, it's hardly anything. But we used to have listeners from all over the world, which I was quite proud of, and I put a lot of heart and soul into. After the first few episodes, where it was very collaborative, I kind of took more and more control over it in terms of like trying to book decent guests, trying to like write some questions so you'd like have things lined up, trying to create like the artwork, the music, editing them, which took ages because there was always sound quality issues and things like that, usually on the guest side. and it was something I was very like kind of proud of and bought into, really, even though we didn't get loads of people listening to. I think if the amount of people were all over the world that listened to it, that was what sort of like quite impressed me. You know, when you got people in, say, something like 50 countries listening to you every week, that was quite crazy for me. But and it was niche. It was kind of about martial arts and fighting, but you very much drift into people's lives, and you can't separate life from, say, martial arts and training. You know, martial arts and training is such a physical thing, but it's the kind of we wanted to be more like the kind of conversations we'd have in the pub after training.
Nice.
So it was good. We got to 100 episodes. I think on about 93 episodes, and we finished in like 2019, I think, or 2020. 2020 it would have been. When we got to 93 episodes, Jim lost his gym, which is a mouthful, but because of the COVID pandemic, you know, the gym got shut down. He relied on a lot of people, I think, probably paying, you know, monthly. It's the first thing they could cancel, you know, like to save some money when everything changed. He lost his gym and he just went quiet on me, and we never got it going again. And that had happened a couple of times where we had little gaps. People want that continuity where you're throwing out an episode every week, and consistency. And
That's
we've
9
lost
arms.
we'd lost that a couple of times. And it's always crossed my mind to do a final episode, or to get something else going, like maybe something about my football team, or like God knows what else. But it was much more on the personal improvement than just talking about fighting, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, you know, and I know what you mean about the being very niche. I mean, we have, you know, I've got, I don't know, 1,000 friends on Facebook or something, you know, from over the years, and it's all because of the martial arts. I mean, there's some friends and family in there, obviously, but in general, it's the martial arts thing, and because of what is out there. I mean, this is me, maybe an old man type grudge or attitude, but I feel like the high quality stuff doesn't get a lot of listens. I mean, there are good shows that have millions of views. There are things that people like to listen to and watch, but in general, it's so much nonsense that gets people like passing it around, and then of course shorter things. You know, I definitely notice when I do a short from an interview, I'll get 1,000 views on YouTube. But if it's the whole interview, you know, that's a commitment. And so I'm trying this, you know, now to try to get a little bit more people to realize that this is something that they might like, put out those little shorts, and then say, okay, now listen to the whole interview, because I see people at the gym. It drives me crazy. And I'm probably mentioning something I've mentioned in 5 other podcasts, but I'll go to the gym and there's somebody sitting on a machine flipping through videos on Instagram instead of working out. And it's just like addiction. You see, there's like one that's 5 seconds long, and then they go to another one, and I'm just like looking around going, are there not any rules in this gym? I mean, this isn't your
It's
personal
designed
gym.
that way. I think there's a real backlash against that now, and like over here, they're looking at banning social media for kids. And I think if you can stop people getting into it when they're young, that might help. Obviously, it wasn't a thing when we were younger. I can't bring myself to delete Facebook and Instagram. I've still got them, but what I do is I delete them and download them once a month, have a look, and then delete them.
Nice.
And I think like it was my birthday about a month ago, and I think of my 1,100 friends, I think 30 said happy birthday on there, because people just aren't looking at it like they used to. But I think when you've got a podcast, that was probably the last time I was looking regularly at social media, because I had to put something out there, and that sort of cutting it down into bite-sized clips wasn't such a thing. I think that's evolved since I was doing it. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. Like the way the algorithms, I think even in Facebook, I mean, people always talk about YouTube and things like that, but I'm seeing so much more stuff that I'm not interested in, or people that I know very well that I like. I communicate with you, but I'll see somebody else that
Yeah.
I never communicate, and they're the first thing I see as I go into Facebook. And so normally it would have said, "Hey, Tom McGrath's birthday," boom, 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 and it's and it's like, by the way, I think I could tell that you haven't been on social media because I think we lost a view on our on our podcast. It was you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I've been listening to the shows, and it's good to see them back. I've listened
Yes.
to part one of Eddie. I've still got a second half to go.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Johnny Mac, etc.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Having the guys that and Eddie absolutely we didn't get it we got into a kind of a spray of things, but he actually does have a deep love for Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do, and it was kind of interesting to hear about his boxing stuff. But in general, we've had more people like you, people that we've trained with or have a very specific connection to us. And but we're also still in a very new phase of the podcast, and like not just what do we want to do, but what do other people want? What do people want to hear? And you have been instrumental in helping us get this going. Dennis came and said, "Do you want to do one?" And then I'm like, "Yeah, I think I could do that." And then I saw, wait, actually, I don't know how to do that.
Me either. That's why I went to you.
I went to Tom.
I didn't realize it was a Dennis idea. I'd assumed this had you written all over it, Jeremy, to be honest.
Wow. Okay. I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? I actually had thought about it, but it's like my issue with social media is that the
I don't
idea,
watch it.
yeah, the idea of having to post something constantly, and I love doing the podcast, but the idea of social media in general, that people have to constantly podcast. I see guys, I mean not podcast, sorry, post things like, here's what I had for breakfast.
Oh, God.
Here's what I'm eating for lunch. Here's, and that was my kind of feeling of how to get that you have to live if you're going to do any kind of media. And maybe we need to do more of that. Well, it remains to be seen. But I know when we had Lack Loy on this show, I said, "Well, you don't do much social media, right?" And he goes, "Oh, all the time." All the time. He's like, I'm constantly
Yeah,
blogging, and I was like, okay, well, that's why you have so many students. I don't
yeah,
advertise at all. All the students at my house, all 10 of them have found me. They go
yeah,
to the Wednesday night group page, they get in touch with somebody sends me an email. And that has been fine because I don't really want the class. I mean, it's at my house. I don't want everybody and their brother just showing up to my house, just their brother, you know. But that's the way, that's the way it's been. But I don't know that if it's, well, Dennis is zooming in.
I
Oh,
think
no,
I think that niche thing is really crucial.
Yeah.
Lack's trying to push two sides of the martial mind power stuff and the fighting
Yeah.
stuff. And I always see you, Jeremy, as someone who'd probably like to be out there more, and Dennis as someone who'd like to be out there less. But like it's I think you've got to have some kind of presence now. I mean, all I would do is like post a clip of like this is who the guest is this week,
Yeah.
and then we would grow organically from you would have a guest on, someone would listen to it and think, oh, I like that, and then because they follow that particular person, and then they might find some of your other content or shows. And then we were just trying to put out things regularly. We tried doing like a boxing show and an MMA show, and those are actually pretty good, but they didn't get the level of listening that some of the other stuff did.
Hmm.
And that wasn't our niche. There's other boxing shows, there's other MMA shows out there that do it better than us. Where people are going specifically to hear what the latest is in the boxing or MMA scenes. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. You know, just before you came on, I was talking to Dennis about, and we've talked about this before, but I'm more serious this time, about filming little clips, little JKD instructional clips. And those of you listening, if you post if you if you would like to see this. But I used to put up a video teach something about JKD like once every year or two, and I would get
Yeah.
subscribers and people would watch it, but it just wasn't what I was trying to do at the time. But I think I'm from Dennis and I are, and you, I guess, you're younger than we are, but are from the television era, where things had commercials and you came to watch things at a certain time. And it's
Yeah,
still,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
even though I'm an IT guy, it's still a change for me to feel like, you're connecting with people, and you have to just put things out there and they'll come in, they'll get it, at will sort of.
You guys have so much content already. I mean, I know some of it won't be like in kind of HD format, etc. But
Right.
whether it's the Chinatown stuff or stuff we filmed at seminars, it's
Yeah.
just packaging some of that up, I think, and
Yeah.
getting it out there. That
Absolutely.
is a big job in itself, though. So
Yep. Yep. And that's those are discussions that are ongoing, and there's the idea of just having little things to keep people interested in the channel and wanting to come and see what else we have, and then the actual putting something out that represents the Wednesday night group, and that's something that is ongoing. We've had two of our major seminars canceled in the last 2 years, and it's unfortunate. I guess one of them was going to be the one was supposed to be in Sicily this year, and then we found out that it wasn't going to happen. And I guess that's because of a hurricane or something along those lines. And the previous year it was a fire, and so but the overall attitude is I'd like to get the major players and parts of that actually support the group and that excel within the group to actually be part of creating a series of video and things like that if it's needed, to start with something that is fundamental and that could get people to see what we are about, but what we're about all over, not just from Dennis and me, but the people that are actually supporting and part of us. So, but you'd have to get out of the military for a few minutes and dust off your karate pants or your
yeah,
Jeet Kune Do
yeah,
pants, sorry.
yeah.
All
I'm not too
right.
active these days, but yeah.
So you got, I thought Dennis was going to say something. I don't, were you
No,
saying something, Dennis?
I just chuckled.
Okay. So you've got a football team, eh?
So yeah, it's the World Cup now, isn't it, for
Yep.
America? So is that a big deal for you guys over there, or you couldn't care less?
Well, remember, we have a lot of people from Mexico that live here, that or Mexic or Mexican American or whatever, where their ancestry. So they already are very much into football, soccer, as we call it. I like to see it when it's on, but yeah, I mean, it's not, to me, it's not like the Super Bowl. However, I don't really usually, since I teach on Sundays, that's usually when all the major sports are on that I can see Sunday and Monday. So it's like I haven't been able to sit down and watch anything throughout a season for a while. But Dennis, do you watch the football, the soccer?
Rarely.
Rarely. What do you prefer, American football or
I'm not a big sports fan.
uh,
Over here, they like to give the impression that it's like, everyone's loving it in America. But I know when I talk to you guys, I get a more accurate view. Uh, for us, it's a big deal. I mean, the games are on at funny times here, and I think it's the most commercially driven rip-off World Cup I've seen. Like tickets going for like $1,000 is not affordable to normal people, and I think a lot of people from England who may have gone over in the past haven't gone because it's just simply too expensive.
mm,
Got this idea of the hydration break, which is they're getting booed every time they happen, and it's creating like a timeout scenario in football, which shouldn't have that. So it's a game of two halves, not four quarters.
I haven't heard of the hydration break.
They're big. They're a big deal. They're a big deal. So like, everyone's booing them. And
Uh,
the thing is, it's cynical because even in the air-conditioned stadiums, they're having these hydration breaks. So it's literally just so they can run a load of advertising and Americanize it, frankly, which
Huh.
Oh boy.
when we try to make your sports, when you have British commentary over like basketball or like American football or whatever it might be, we make a mess of it. And when you guys try to do the same, I think to football or soccer, it's kind of the same. But yeah, my team won the league, Arsenal, and the Champions League final, which is like the biggest game in football other than the World Cup, was on my birthday in Hungary, so I went over there.
Wow.
We lost on penalties, sadly. It's always my story, but and
Is it because of you?
good. Maybe. It was all very stressful because I thought we'd definitely get tickets and we didn't, and then I had to like pretend to be someone else. I went up there with someone else's passport, like flashing it and like.
You didn't just say that on air, did you?
It's all right. It's fine. I got in the end.
That's all that matters.
It was another poorly run event. It was like an hour to queue up for beers. So like everyone was buying like 3 or 4 beers for themselves at the time, which makes the queues even longer. And then when we went to the airport, like afterwards, they ran out of food. It's like, did you not know this big game was going to be on? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to say, we may not be the best thermometer for barometer. I don't know how test for how Americans like football, soccer, because yeah, I think Dennis and I may not just be the biggest. I mean, I do love sports when I watch it. I went to a Clippers game back in December,
Yeah.
and
Are they still
absolutely.
terrible or not?
They were doing really well. They won like 10 games in a row. They beat the
Right.
Lakers, and then suddenly they
Yeah.
just tanked. And then they got rid of Harden, and for some reason they dumped him. And then, but anyways, I when Aiden was playing basketball, he was very good in junior high school level,
Yeah.
very small school. So whatever that means, but he was good in there. And I got to train with him and train him and help with the team and all that. So I got more involved in basketball then. But um, yeah, it's just since he got out and he's been in college, I haven't been involved in much. So I think that there's plenty
See,
more.
I always like with you guys. So one of my best friends from university lives in New York. So I'd visit New York, and New York's very cosmopolitan, and you don't really get that thing of like, oh my God, you've got a British accent, which you do get in the rest of America.
Yeah,
You guys,
I was going to mention that.
it's, seeing. It's like whenever I see you guys, it's like I get a more accurate idea of what real Americans think. So like with the way they put it out here in the UK is like everyone in America loves Obama or everyone
Yeah.
in America loves Hillary Clinton because we're always kind of on that sort of left wing end of the spectrum.
Right.
And even you guys would say things like, we don't like Trump, but it's Trump is the better choice of the two, as an example. I remember that with in the kind of the first time he got elected. But yeah, just seeing what real Americans think and how you guys live. As I say, the World Cup hasn't touched on you guys at all, which is great.
Well, I think in this last election he was the only one running.
Yeah, yeah. A bit like Putin.
Yeah, that's totally different.
But yeah, when you're talking about getting a clear description of what's going on, you're getting that definitely from Dennis. He doesn't
Yeah.
hold back.
What?
Come on now, let it go.
I rarely say anything. But when I do,
But when the camera's off, boy, does it roll.
It's I know this isn't a politics podcast, but we since 2008, back in 2008, the UK and America had essentially the same GDP, like the growth per capita. I think we were like 2.3 and you were 2.2. So actually, we were even slightly outperforming you guys. And then since 2008, we have mismanaged our economy to the extent I think we're now 40% poorer than you, and the UK is now poorer than the poorest state, again on this per capita metric, in the whole of America, which I think is the Mississippi or something like that.
yeah.
it's pretty bad. I think a lot of people are genuinely thinking about like just leaving, getting out of this country because it's just
Going
going.
where?
California.
Yeah.
I think you once described it as communist California,
California, that's
crazy
right.
gun laws and
Yeah.
things like
You,
that.
it's funny because, again, I'm not a highly political person. I'm not one of those people that gets on Facebook and puts, whatever, political party promotions but it's interesting when you do see countries starting to teach that we need to leave our borders wide open and just start giving money to people as they come in, and you go, well, how is that sustainable? Yeah, it sounds nice. It sounds like you want to be nice to people. And they said, well, don't worry, we're in charge of the money printing company here. We'll take care
Yeah,
of it. I mean, that's really, I mean, in a childish sort of way, that's the way it sounds. It sounds like, oh, don't worry, we'll just give people, come on in. We're just going to give you money and a place to stay, and then the people that are actually paying taxes are going,
We'll work the details out
you
later.
worked with details.
yeah.
The people that are paying taxes are not happy as they start to realize that, because when Obama was president, people kept saying, or was sorry, running for president, people kept saying free healthcare. We're going to have free healthcare. And we're like, there's no such thing as free
Right.
healthcare. There's no such thing as free anything. Now, if you
That's
want
why there's
government run healthcare, that's different, but it's not free. You have to understand where the money's come from, and we have to figure that out first. And I know
Yeah.
you know all about that.
Yeah, I mean, we have the same situation you have in terms of like gigantic government debt, and the only way to pay that down or reduce it is to print more money and devalue your currency.
Hmm.
And the effect that has on everyone who saves or exhibits the right behaviors is terrible over a long period of time. As I say, I think it's worse for us here than it is for you guys. But and when you talk about those two, there's these two ends of the spectrum. Like, there should be a world with open borders, like George Soros wants, and the moral imperative, which is to help everyone, versus that's cloud cuckoo land. What can we do practically? And nation states do exist, whether you like that or not. You would have to have some sort of control over your borders. You can't help everyone. And what I've come to learn is there's no sense in if there are people who have strongly feel on ends of those spectrum, both ends of the spectrum, and you're just not going to change them. And our country seems to be pretty much split down the middle. I think America's slightly more sensible, but our country really is kind of 50-50 on everything. So everyone's completely divided and not great for pulling in the right direction or solving the problems that we have.
Yeah, if things get a little worse, then maybe they will get better. I think that, and who knows that, but I think what you see in our last election was that people were happy for things to go status quo, and the farther they got extreme, extreme left or extreme whatever you want to call it, where people where we're saying we must have the government pay for children to be able to change their sex without their parents knowledge, and just crazy things like that, that even people that were not Republican were going, no, I
Yeah,
can't support that. Let me go, I'm going to have to vote for this Republican that I would have never voted for before, and that's why he won in a landslide. And that's, you hope that you don't get these extreme pendulum swings back and forth,
yeah.
but that's many times what's going to happen.
When you've got the sort of the yin and yang of
Mhm.
martial arts, these two things exist to balance each other out, and the right and the left of politics exist to balance each other out as well. And when you go too far on the crazy ends of the spectrum, the other side will start pushing back. And I think trans is one of those things where it's a lot of people who just said, "Hold on a minute, that's a bit too much."
Mhm.
Yeah. We've not talked about martial arts much, have we?
No,
This is
no.
my point
We just did.
about
We
podcast.
just did. You said yin and yang.
Yeah, there you
Okay,
go.
so
But you know
harmony,
what?
balance.
I think it resonates though, and you're an interesting person. But okay, so I did want to I did want to ask you about your military, unless it's top secret. What is it? You're still involved in the military? What is it you're doing?
Yeah. So let's start with martial arts, and then we'll come back to the military
Okay,
stuff.
okay, okay.
So, like in 2007, I was a member of a gym, and I saw there was like a free class going on, which was Bruce Lee's martial art, and I was like, Bruce Lee, it's a name you instantly recognize. I wasn't. I think my generation, people of 10 years younger than me, were the people that loved Bruce Lee still, and I think my generation was like where the films just started to look slightly old and weren't quite as cool. So there's guys like Scott Pratt, etc., who or Lack, who were just like blown away by these films that they were watching in the 70s. But when I was in the 80s, I felt some of them looked a bit dated. And I went to this class, and I instantly liked it. I liked the fact that we didn't wear a uniform, we didn't have belts, and we were just kind of like fighting and training, for practical application. And Lack was a pretty new to instructing and finding his feet with it, and we were like very willing students to go along with that. Lack's always been great with beginners. Doesn't kind of totally take you out of your comfort zone and stick you into like sparring the biggest guy in your first session. And we would like train. We went from having it was his first ever class, and then we went from having one class a week to two classes a week to starting training on Saturdays. And we'd have like these sort of like fight clubs and fight in the park. And then I think people like Tim Tackett from Wednesday Night Groups started coming over. I would start going over to America, and I had a journey where I just for 14 years I did more and more martial arts kind of every day, and I saw it as almost like a point of pride. I'd be posting pictures of I did this seminar one weekend, this over the. I was kind of sending out the message to the world, like, look how dedicated I am. I'm really, I'm doing my thing. And it wasn't about instructorship, certificates, anything like that. It was about kind of being better than you were the day before. And I always wanted to show you guys, and in particular Tim Tackett, that year on year I was improving. And then I would meet people through the Wednesday Night Group who treated me really well. Whether I've stayed in a lot of you guys' houses, and I would go and visit people without Lack, in whether it was in America or whether it was in Europe. People like Dieter Kaiser in Belgium, who I'm particularly close to. But like there's a lot of great guys and great trips. So I was just always doing that. I would then find that there was certain skills that I didn't have that other people had. So I was only a Jeet Kune guy. So I could only kind of do stand-up fighting, really. I could kickbox. I didn't have ground fighting. I didn't have weapons. I didn't have locking. So I saw an advert for like a sort of Filipino instructor program. So Rapid Harness, and I joined that, and for like a weekend every month for 5 years, I would go to Leicester, Bristol, Birmingham, and train their stuff in a very structured way with a load of other martial artists who all had some background. So no one was coming to martial arts completely fresh in that group. They all had, say, an instructorship in something else. And that developed my weapons and my locking game. And through that, I met a guy called Andrew Jansen, who he's the most structured guy I've met in martial arts. I think, there's a lack of standards in martial arts because essentially we all create our own standard. It's not like the military where there's a common standard where you pass out and everyone's been measured to the same level. There's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of the challenge is, one system's black belt will be really high standard, and other systems' black belt will be really low standard. So anyway, I met this guy, Andy, and Andy was doing things and living like he was doing, say, for example, a lot of shooting, and he would do security work. And really, I think there's a point in life where you say, like, I've grown up, I don't do these things anymore. And he was just doing all the stuff that I found very cool. And I would
Cool.
go away and shoot with him in Czechoslovakia initially, and then Slovakia, which are two countries that have kind of more liberal gun laws compared to the UK. And we do kind of pretty tactical shooting, so like longs and shorts, transitions from like rifle to pistol. Um, yeah, again, really well structured training. And I think it was through him who said like, "Oh, you should give the military a go," or like I'd said how I'd failed the potential officers course for the Royal Marines when I was 19, and I think from the age of 30, I started looking at the kind of reservist websites, and nothing is on the scale that it is in America, and the websites did a disservice to what you can do. So, like, obviously, you're thinking, I would like to be like a Apache pilot or a sniper or something like that. And it's like some of those roles are not available to reservists,
Hmm.
mainly because of the training commitment involved. But I want, there is so much that you can do, long story short. And I joined my local regiment. I'm artillery, but you get to do all sorts of other stuff as well. And it's been my big passion since 2019. So it's my martial arts journey, sort of like I don't know what the right term is. It's definitely eased off. Maybe it's paused. I'm still doing stuff here and there, but like not a great deal these days. I've gone mad on the military stuff. It's a part-time role. So it's like I'm doing like 2 weekends a month. I'm training soldiers now. So that consumes a weekend and every Tuesday for me. And then I'm still keeping a foot in the door with my kind of artillery day job, which is another weekend a month and every Wednesday. So I'm really finding I'm getting a lot out of that at the moment. I've recently been promoted. I've got it's like the biggest deployment of troops into Europe by NATO next year, Operation Steadfast Defender, which is across Poland and Germany. So I sort of want to be ready to do that in the best possible place. So yeah, that's a bit of a monologue, but that's gives everyone a good idea of what my little journey has been in that space.
What's your rank currently?
I'm a lance sergeant, which is basically a corporal.
Oh,
So you have like lance corporal, corporal, but we use a funny rank structure that we follow the guards rank structure. And that I think it dates back to Queen Victoria said that having one chevron looked lonely, and therefore her guards would have two chevrons. So as soon as you pick up, you have two chevrons, and then you jump up to three chevrons, and then at sergeant you stay on three chevrons. So it causes a bit of confusion when you go to other regiments and you get treated slightly differently. It also means that I can like go into any sergeant's mess despite not having a full sergeant's rank. So that's the main benefit of it. I
that's
still
very
get
interesting.
paid the same. There's no money difference, but yeah.
Well, that's cool. Dennis, so Tom, you said that there are a lack of opportunities for reservists, or it looked
No,
that
there's
way.
just certain roles that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do. So, say for example, you could drive a tank as a reservist, but it's a 6 month course, and most people don't have the time or inclination to take that amount of time off work. So you're normally judging, you're normally working with an employer. I personally get no extra time off from work for military service, so I've got to be really
Oh, wow.
yeah, I've got a sort of off the books agreement with my boss, but it's
That's nice.
yeah, it's challenging. Whereas some people who work for the government have a lot of time off for military service can really go the extra mile. I've got to always weigh things up. So like this year, I've got a promotions course at the end of the month. I've got a 2 week artillery course in September, and then I've got a 1 week kind of instructing qualification in November. So that's 2 weeks, and then I'll do a couple of gun salutes. That's 22 days. I only get 26 days of holiday, so
Mm.
that's sort of what I've got to deal with.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's, Dennis, how much holiday do you get?
None.
You work about 3 jobs, right, Dennis?
Not anymore.
No.
Yeah, I just try to stay awake to talk to people at midnight now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
So okay, just for the JKD fans here, I wanted to back up real quick and just jump on something that you were saying earlier. You got to work, of course, with Tim Tackett. Did you ever get to work with Bob Bremer?
No, I was post Bob and Jim. I mean, Jim was still around. Actually, so was Bob because we had the Bob Bremer Memorial thing. But
That's right. Yeah.
oh, I didn't get to work with either of them. But I feel like I kind of know them through all the stories you guys would tell,
Yeah.
and because I'm always that guy who's in the bar afterwards. Like that's where you
Yep.
absorb all of this information. I think. Um,
Yeah.
when you're teaching and like you get a little insights in that, but when you hear about what these people were like, it's from having the talk in the garage afterwards when we have a beer, or like maybe in some Irish pub somewhere of like what famous things Bob did, or this and the other. And
Yes.
there's been some real characters in the group, and Tim was amazing at drawing people in from different backgrounds who maybe weren't pure JKDers, and didn't have the kind of Wednesday night group depth of knowledge that you guys have had. And I think some of those guys maybe still have a bit of effort to do to get that knowledge out of you guys. But he was great at bringing in characters like Jim, and
Yes.
it's yeah, amazing group of people, really.
Yeah. And you mentioned the certification and level and things like that. And it's true that, we certainly have never been highly focused on rank, and it's a struggle that we're still dealing with in this group, in my group. We train to be better, and we are a small group that people show up, they want to learn, I teach them, and then I started using rank just to make sure that we had a way of measuring what people were learning. But
Yeah,
even in the garage, we didn't have a ranking system. It was after a certain amount of time and you started teaching that you would start to get sort of a rank, and unfortunately it got even more convoluted, I think, as
yeah,
the guys got older, because they were the ones that could have really laid down, this is what Bruce said. And we have the information. We have all the information, but none of us, and this is a discussion we've had with you before, and I have a lot of people have sent me what they have for rank and what they're using at their schools, but I'm still looking at Bruce Lee's notes. We're still looking at Tim Tackett's notes, and then of course, all of the video and all of the knowledge that Bob and Jim gave us. And it's not easy. It's not easy to lay out in that form, but there's so many people that have certificates out there. I'm like, where
yeah.
did you get these?
Right. Yep.
To my mind, again, we talked about that lack of standards, and I think every weakness is everyone's biggest strength is usually also their biggest weakness. So as an example, for me, like I can be quite humble, which is a good attribute. And I can also be very self-deprecating, as in, tell myself that I'm rubbish and blah blah blah. So that is an example of that yin and yang scale and I think with the Wednesday night group, it's the strength was always that you could bring these people in. That we had quite a fluid approach to, say, promoting people. If the guys were around and they were showing the dedication, they'd seen some of our stuff. They weren't formally tested. They would be issued a certificate, and there's a whole story around that with me, as you know, uh,
Hmm.
at the end of a seminar, and that was kind of great, but
And me?
it brought a lot of people into the group and enabled people from, say, around the world to come together without spending loads of time with you guys, and collect some sort of level where they could go back and say, yeah, no, I'm teaching Wednesday night group instructions to my students in, say, Iceland or some
Hmm.
random country. The bad side of it is what is Wednesday night group JKD if it's not written down somewhere and it's
All right.
not commonly understood by all of its practitioners, and we don't know what great looks like versus good, etc., etc. I think, it's remiss of us to have never fully closed that gap.
Yeah.
And I've attempted it. I think I dusted off that attempt that I did about 5 or 6 years ago to send to
Yes, you did.
Christian, and it was actually a pretty good document. I mean, I was
Well, I
actually
mean, to another point. Can you guys hear me? Because it keeps,
Yes.
yeah,
no?
yeah,
Yes,
we
we
can
can hear
hear
you.
Hold
you.
on.
Yeah,
All right. Are
maybe you
we,
can't hear
are we
us.
back?
Yes. Could you go ahead, Dennis? Did you have something to say?
Oh, I was just, because for a while I was sounding robotic and
Oh, it might have. I was having no trouble hearing him, so I think it was just your internet might have gone a little goofy.
okay. All right. Well, what I was going to mention is that, people at the should understand that, they talk about codifying what we do. The problem with that is, you know, like the June fan aspect of what we do is the introduction and the very beginning of what we do. So there are definites and set systems and progression for that. Where as when JKD was originally set up, from what you know, well, anyway, so you have the Jun fan, and then you have the philosophical element, which is the Tao of Chinese Kung Fu, and then you have the JKD. And I like to point it out as this: when you're learning to read a map, okay, um, first you have that orientation of learning how to use a compass and map, and then you have to learn how to navigate with that, and then you learn to orienteer, and it's the same thing. So you can't codify something or standardize something like JKD itself because it is a process and not a product. you know. So that's where we have the hardest time. And I mean, we can set down like the Jun Fan, the basic principles, and then you move to the concepts, and then I like to move towards theorem versus concepts. But you know, again, it goes back to trying to codify this. It's a very difficult thing to do because everyone is individual, right? And they're going to express themselves in a different way, which is what the whole philosophical element is about, is you take what
Yeah.
you learn in the Jun Fan aspect and then you move forward. So, I don't know. It's been on my mind the past couple of days.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean because in many ways, like it's a mindset rather than JKD is something different than just saying like this is a system or a collection of
Right.
techniques. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think as I say, I pulled together that document which I was quite proud of looking back on it, and I gave it to Chris, and ran it through AI and added some other bits in, but we've never really locked anything down. And I think if the answer is that we can't because it's a process rather than okay, how do we convey what we have? So if you guys weren't there, you can just go on your own journey and buy all the different books you can find, and buy all the different, or say all of Tim's books, or buy all of the books by all the famous Wednesday night group instructors, or see all the videos that were put out by people. But it's like, there is a degree of like seeing and feeling it. So I can see someone perform a certain style of JKD and go, that's Ted Wong JKD, because of the similarity in the way he looks to
Right. Yeah.
or someone like Paul Vunak, where you've got like the trapping stuff, and because I've seen these videos and I know how people move. I don't know whether that firm understanding is out there of like what is Wednesday night group JKD. I probably would look at you guys as sort of saying, oh, that's Wednesday night group JKD. Say for example, the stop kick, leg obstruction, as an example, would be like, oh, that's
Mhm.
Wednesday night group JKD, kind of, because it's been passed
Yeah.
down from Bob Bremer, and it's less about looking about like Bruce Lee and more about making it your own. And there's also elements of the kind of guys that you were, all relatively big guys, not in the sort of Ted Wong kind of smaller guy build that's going to naturally gravitate to moving like Bruce Lee, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah. And I
It
do
does
think
make
that,
sense.
yeah, I completely think that we can get something, especially like Dennis is saying at the Gen Fan level, that is very, it's Bruce Lee, and it has the definite signature of the Wednesday night group. And at the same time, Dennis and I have been evolving on our own over the last 30 years. And so, yeah, so that, but I'm very hopeful that we can give something that we can give to our students and say, at least have this, before
Right.
you move on. And it's a scientific structure. It's based on everything that we taught back in the 90s and from the Bob Bremer era, in my opinion. And 90s and beyond when Bob was around. And was but yeah, I think that there's still hope in that, and that's where I'm very hopeful. I haven't really talked about this, but I went through some very crazy health problems towards the end of the last year, and
Yeah.
uh, and I was laying on my living room floor for about a month and a half and just wasn't moving. And so, even when we were talking in that WhatsApp call, I was still going through some just very strange, health problems that I seem to be doing much better now. So I was only focusing on that, and Dennis and I haven't talked much, and I've been working out of all of that since then. So I'm hopeful to get back
Oh,
to
good
it.
connection.
And Dennis is having the internet connections again,
I
issues.
am.
But I do think that I think there's something that we can do, and I think it's something we should do,
I
to
think
make sure we can move forward with this.
my experience was like, I think when I was doing the JKD via LAC. So we had this interesting situation where like the Wednesday night group when I went to America promoted me, and then I got back to England. They go, they shouldn't have done that. Like, you haven't gone through the whole system on our side, which was
Hmm.
kind of caused all sorts of dramas for me personally. And I think then I had this sort of like thereafter I kind of could see the benefit of a structured syllabus based system. And when I did the Filipino system, they have a very well documented syllabus that's very well understood by the students, and they revise it constantly. So it doesn't have to be perfect first time, because I know Dennis is a perfectionist and will want everything to be perfect before releasing something. But what they've done, as an example, recently is they cut out all groundwork out of the syllabus, and they said they've got loads of guys who do groundwork, who've got groundwork backgrounds from going away and doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and they wanted to bring some of that back into the system. But they was saying, we've never failed anyone on not being good at the groundwork piece, so why do we have it in the system? And I think it's getting something out there that we could all work off and be understood and assess people against would close some of the issues that we've had in the past. And as I say, I really saw the benefit of that when I joined the Filipino thing. I mean, initially when I first got into JKD and it was my first step into martial arts, I loved the fact that JKD, we didn't wear the uniform, we didn't have kind of structured approach to grading at the time, et cetera, et cetera. And then you come kind of full circle and go, actually, I see the merit in that and why it exists, and why it's common across kind of every system.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bruce Lee tested his students. I mean, he gave them rank, and I think it's for the same reason that I do with my students, and that is so we know what we taught them. It's you could just have everybody spar and keep training, but I only have one class. I don't have a beginner's class. I don't have classes based on levels. So if I don't give them rank, I can't hold them to a standard, and I can't
yeah,
remember, and I don't always know, because Dennis used to get frustrated with us too, because he was like, I already showed you this, and we'd go like, no, you didn't. And it's like, but if you're at that rank, then you know what you should know, and you can't really argue it if we're
yeah.
if we're at a certain rank, and he taught us that ranks information. And so that, with my students, like my son is involved and everything. We're still very focused on hitting with power, just like we always were. But there are very specific ways and techniques that I require people learn. I teach stuff that I don't test on. But
Yeah.
so it's like you don't have to test on everything you teach. You just have to make sure there's these fundamental foundational techniques or whatever you want to call them that everyone must know. And these are foundation to Wednesday night group or JKD and specifically Wednesday night group JKD.
Yeah, and I think you can get so much probably out of the first few levels of JKD. You know, those basic once you've got your straight lead down and your stop kick and things like that, you've got a toolkit that you can kind of use forever. And there's a lot of certificate collectors out there, but
Hmm.
once you've got your black belt, that is the beginning, or in any system, that is kind of the beginning of the journey. That is when you can start giving back to the system and you can start influencing the system, you know, taking things out, putting things in, testing them, etc., going and doing other martial arts and bring it, making everything a bit more well-rounded. I think I've not fully done that myself, but I've got a lot of knowledge from you guys. So like when after I got my instructorship in the Filipino stuff was pretty much bang on when I joined the army. So like I went there last year and they gave me my second degree instructorship, which was you know, appreciated, maybe slightly undeserved. But it's you know I see the whole like warrior mindset of you doing the martial arts stuff, doing the army stuff, trying to half maintain fitness and learn about combat in general. It's kind of like it's a lifelong journey, not just not just getting that certificate and moving on, you know. Yeah, and I'm a bit of an evangelist for the military and the way they do things. So you know, the way we work is pretty much every test is pass or fail. So if you've passed, you know everyone has hit the standard. And then when it comes to promotions, they literally rank everyone at your rank from, you know, top to bottom, 1 to 30 or whatever it might be. And you have top third, middle third, bottom third, top third can expect to have a chance of promotion, essentially. But it's much clearer than say what I have at work, where you have like a bell curve where meeting expectations is a 3 or a 3 minus or a 3 plus, and then you have the extremities of the bell curve, which are the ones and twos, where you kind of firing people or putting them on performance plans, and fours and fives, where you're saying they're exceptional and they're almost definitely going to get bonuses, but essentially you're grouping almost everyone into this acceptable piece. Whereas, like I'd say, that the military style is a lot better like that. I think it's a lot fairer, a lot more clarity.
I love that. Yeah, I really do. You know, and I think there's a reason I've hesitated in finalizing some of our curriculum. It's you know what back when the Wednesday night group was a group at Tackett's. I mean, we had you know Dennis moved a little farther away, things like that, and we used to all see each other Wednesday nights. And so now we have to make appointments to see each other. And I have what I have, and I feel very good about what I teach. I very you know I've got 36 years doing JKD
Yeah,
under Tim Tackett and under Bob Bremer and Jim Sewell, who are two. Well, Bob Bremer was like the best, you know. At least he was the ass kicker, you know, of the group. And Jim Sewell had a lot of great stories. We even talked to Bill Bremer, Bob's son, who had a lot of time with Bruce Lee. And but at the same time, yeah, I've got I don't I think there's a difference in how I teach and how that a curriculum would work with people across the world. So that's what I think that's why I haven't really put it out there as like here's what I want. And I also want Dennis's stamp of approval, you know, before I put that out there and I've got what you did and that's what I need to get back with Dennis and we need to really buckle down and get this thing fixed because I completely agree. I think that it's if we're going to have a standard for people, well, we need a standard for people if we're going to expect them to do things the way we do it. And the unfortunate thing is that you see people with certificates from this place and that place. Some of them have our names on them and our group's name on it, and they don't do what we do, or they barely do what we do. And you're going, what's going on. So I think that this would,
Yeah, I don't think
help.
we can't change the past.
No, but I mean, I think
And we
that
can
having a
change the
clear
future.
curriculum would help it, to going
Yeah,
forward.
I mean, for the benefit of like listeners, and I think we're in the realms of just going into a chat here, but like
Mhm.
we we have always tried at various points in time we've tried to assess the kind of climate of the group of what would you like to see us do more of or less of, and what needs to change for us to be in the right place. And if the general themes are we want to get together more, which means holding more events, have an online
Yes.
presence, which is quite high effort. LAC's very good at doing it, like you said, but it
Mhm.
involves someone cutting and editing photos and having a sort of social media plan, and and then having some sort of like standard and testing so everyone knows, there's kind of fairness and consistency around the way, to my point before around passing and failing, the way certificates and qualifications are issued. So we know the problem. It's just that the solution never quite gets over the line.
That's right. That's right. Well, I guess what we could say is stay tuned and look. We have committed to bringing this thing around, and I think that the Wednesday night group still has a lot to offer the world. And whether it's in a massive way or in just the small ways that we've done before, in high quality, in the high quality ways, reaching handfuls of people.
Yeah.
I think that the proof is the proof of the pudding, is in the eating, and we'll have to play that out as we get together and work together more in the future.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much value in what we do, and I think when you apply it, the mindset and the way we talk about martial arts, etc., is valuable to anyone from any other system. And I think MMA and things like that. That's the fashion at the moment, and to be part of these gyms that have a lot of merchandise and all that sort of thing. We're from
Yeah.
a slightly different era in terms of people training in their backyard and training not to make money but to be like a more effective street fighter, where rather than be better in a cage or a ring or just have a extensive merchandising brand. That's not who
Yeah.
we are, what we're about. But the thought process around JKD and the way you assess things and test things is
Hmm.
forever be valuable.
Absolutely.
And that's really the power, and why I'd recommend anyone works with the Wednesday night group at least to some extent.
Yeah, I agree, man. And that's I think that's a good place to wrap it up for today. I think that we need to get together more often. We need to see each other more if we ever can.
Yeah. We've just got to get a big thing in for next year. It's got to be like Germany, Sicily.
Yes,
That's got to be one of them, and then maybe make it over to the States as well. The appetite's there, but we just need to land the events and
absolutely,
collaborate
man.
more, right?
Yeah.
Everyone needs to collaborate more.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you so much for all your support over the years, man. Tom has been absolutely, even when he's not been able to attend, he's always been willing to be there for advice or for just support. And like you said, you collected a lot of that information and data for us. And we really appreciate that. And I'm hoping I can get out to England again, maybe next year. So we'll try to see if you have a few
That'd be
seconds.
great. Yeah,
To,
European tour, Jeremy
yeah,
Lin,
I would love it.
2027.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, my friend. Thank you, brother. Have a wonderful day there in sunny England.
Yeah, it actually is genuinely very sunny for once.
Nice. It's finally cooled down here. Well, have a fantastic day. Dennis has lost his connection, unfortunately,
Yeah,
but he bids you adieu as well.
thank
And
you, and yeah, have a good one to all the fathers out there. It's Father's Day in the UK.
yes, here
Hopefully,
too.
yeah.
And
Okay,
have a great one.
take care.
Bye.